Disclaimer, this video will touch on socio-political topics, my personal beliefs regarding such, backed up by research and logical examples of why I harbor said beliefs. Again, these are my beliefs, and mine alone. They are not representative of anyone else associated with this channel or myself. We Baby Bears has decided to forcefully add ham-fisted pronouns into a show aimed at 7-year-old kids following in the footsteps of Nick and Paramount Plus. Wonderful. After Steven Universe paved the way, which average viewers were thankfully older, I should have seen this coming, but Ice Bear never fails to be disappointed. Roll the clip.
We found Jared, poor lad, and this be Winnie.
Hey there! I am the great Winifred. She, her. Actor extraordinaire.
They're the new crew.
This is awesome! Our crew also has a new addition, Beatbox. They use they, them pronouns, and they make an exceptionally good quiche.
You're well met, Fox. I use they, them pronouns as well.
Now let's talk about why this is a problem. Although I did like We Bare Bears, binged it with Stanley, binged it alone, got emotional over the movie, the whole shebang, I never got into this version of the show after failing to be impressed by the first few episodes. That being said, given that this is a prequel, putting things that weren't present within the past show into this one is absolutely stupid. Welcome to Writing 101. If you're making a prequel, you can't make your own continuity because one has already been established. So therefore, you have to stay within the logical bounds of the show you are building into. The very idea of introducing yourselves with pronouns is not ever brought up within the universe of We Bare Bears, which makes this scene problematic in a continuity standpoint unless it's instead problematic with the community it's trying to pander to. What I mean is that if we are led to believe that this is in fact the baby versions of the bears, then that implies that in the future explaining pronouns is no longer something that happens, that the fad is over, the trend has stopped, and society as a whole had moved on. Which stance is it, CN, because you're putting out mixed signals with your awful writing? This kind of pandering should be looked at with offense by the very people it's attempting to pander to. Don't devalue yourselves. Demand better. Aside from the fundamentals of storytelling though, this is a problem due to the age demographic it is attempting to appeal to. Let's talk about the stages of development for a second. Gather Piaget's take and then move on to someone else that has a far different opinion, that still holds weight within my argument. Bear with me. 7 years old is still within the pre-operational stage, where kids are learning to play pretend, where they would hear the character go, "My name's and I go by they them pronouns, take that and replicate it." Since kids at this stage struggle to understand the perspective of others, they them would be something they would apply to themselves, not understanding the fundamental difference between themselves and the person they are mimicking. Remember back when you wanted to be a superhero, a Power Ranger, have an arm with a cannon mounted on it because you really thought Megatron was cool? You never saw it as anything besides a possibility. Also, kids at this stage are still very much thinking in concrete terms, so they take everything at face value, seeing everything as factual, and struggle with any semblance of abstract thought. They aren't comparing and contrasting realities and are much more susceptible to accepting whatever they are shown as unwavering truth. On the other side of the same bridge, 7 is also putting toes into the concrete operational stage, where they are just gaining the ability to attempt to become logical and organized, where they are more likely to become confused due to abstract thought trying to form until they reach 12 years old, when it finally does within the formal operational stage. 7 years old is the sweet spot between pre-operational and the concrete operational stages, where confusing a child is most likely, especially if it's the intention all along. They aren't still stubborn enough to not go along with certain things, but aren't developed enough to understand the idea of everyone having unique thoughts, feelings, and opinions. Piaget was a big believer that internal factors, such as brain development, was a huge deciding factor on how kids develop in general. Just for those who decide to ignore that though, I will bring in the complete opposite side of the coin as well, Vygotsky. Vygotsky believed that external factors had the greatest impact. He sees cognitive functions, even those carried out alone, as affected by beliefs, values, and other aspects related to culture as what has the greatest effect. Simply psychology has a good example. In Western culture, children learn note-taking to aid memory, but in pre-literate societies, other strategies must be developed. In order to align that with the main point at hand here, in many tribal cultures, the idea of gender non-conforming, transgenderism, homosexuality, etc. may not even be present. Due to that not being a culturally accepted phenomenon to them, they would never learn to engage in it at a young age, and without it being shown to them by people that do, again, at a young age, it would most likely never even be formed as a thought. If adults within said tribe heard stories of such, they'd see it as abnormal, because to them, it would be, since they grew up in a different culture with its own instilled values and beliefs. This is important to point out because, as I said, the young would be most inviting of a different perspective, since they haven't yet grown up grounded in the one that they know. Gender identity disorder, also known as gender dysphoria, is a mental illness that people are dangerously refusing to acknowledge as such, that people can start to experience at any stage of their life. This is well known and well documented, right? Well, not exactly. As I stated earlier, gender dysphoria is no longer regarded as a mental illness due to the stigma related to that term, and although I do believe that change does set a dangerous precedent, it's not necessarily imperative to my argument today. That being said, another way that the research and documentation regarding such is biased is by ignoring the very idea of rapid onset gender dysphoria. In fact, there has been so much controversy regarding it that scientists are too afraid to even bring it up and experiment with the possibility of the idea it's trying to present. I have no such fear though, so let's talk about it, due to its relation to what I brought up earlier. ROGD proposes the idea that gender dysphoria, in some cases, can be caused by social influences. Seems pretty reasonable, right? For example, if all your friends decided to get a tattoo, you'd be more likely to get one as well in order to not feel left out. As weed becomes legalized, there will be a surge of people smoking weed due to more people openly doing it as well as more people just wanting to try it. Back to relating it to kids though. When I was a kid, I watched Power Rangers because my best friend Dylan did. I wanted to be like them. Heck, even wanted to be like Decker because I was exposed to them due to social engagements. I can apply that to a lot of other things honestly, and many other kids could as well. I played pretend wanting to be a Power Ranger, had the swords, the Megazord, the Morphers, everything. I repeated lines, sure, but I even took swimming lessons, and one thing that pushed me is the Blue Ranger in Power Rangers Samurai was a swimmer. Kevin, I believe his name was. So as a kid, if you really like Nightshade from Transformers or one of the bears from We Baby Bears, you'd copy things of them too. Maybe even start to believe it. Believe it's possible that you go by different pronouns, that you're not actually the gender you biologically are because that cool character on the show said that they weren't. That would cause confusion as you got older. Some may grow out of it, others may get trapped in it. I'm autistic. My mind works a bit strangely, making me pretty bad at social engagements, causing my emotional and logical sides to clash, causing me to overthink on the simplest of things, be far too imaginative for my own good, and far, far more. As a kid, I believed everything was possible. I believed inanimate objects could possess feelings, that plants felt pain and had awareness. I could be convinced and convince myself of almost anything in any reality. a show like this would have had an impact on me and my perception in potentially drastic and even dangerous ways. Thankfully, it wasn't a big thing back then, but think about now. What about other kids that were like me? How would this affect them? Why don't you care about the potential dangers? The possibility that the kid that thought he was a dinosaur one day can be exposed and seriously believe he's a trans-femme non-binary cat trapped in a human's body, and that actually be reinforced by the character speaking on his screen, should be something that concerns you. So whenever this stuff is in kids shows, although it may seem helpful to people in these communities that want this representation as they are now older, it's confusing to kids, and whether intentionally or not, serves the purpose of trying to get your kids to accept things under your nose that may go against your values and beliefs. Again, this implementation is not always done maliciously, but ignoring the effects it has is malicious ignorance that you, as a parent, still shouldn't ignore. Ignorance of the law is no excuse for breaking it. This shouldn't be excused by ignorance either. Godwins Law states that the longer a conversation goes on, the higher the possibility of Hitler being brought up. Although this is an extreme comparison, extremities and examples do a better job in bringing points home due to the association there is with the emotions tied to them. Yes, I'm telling you, not manipulating you, unlike the corporations making the shows for your kids. Appeasement is the act of granting concessions or leeway to someone in order to maintain some semblance of peace. A good example of such is Nazi Germany during World War II, where we allowed Hitler's conquests time and time again in order to prevent going to war. Appeasement is still being used today by all the parents, the people working on these shows, and the ones watching these shows that refuse to acknowledge the damage being done. The more we allow politics to be brought into the shows, even socio-political ones, the more we open the door for them. The reason we see this side of politics the most, when politics are brought into shows anyway, is because many of its supporters understand this. A large majority immediately cancel shows, actors, and people with opposing views than themselves. In doing so, it creates a vacuum of fear that convinces people to not speak out, not to consider opposing views, and to not attempt to make a change. It's a smart play, but it only works if people allow it. The moment we are willing to make a change, be active in the change we want to see, that is when change is made. The Bud Light boycott is proof that a difference can be made, and the failure of boycotting COD is proof of the willpower we lack to make it. If you are a parent, these are your kids. If you're not, you should still be concerned, because this is the generation growing up. This is the generation that is going to take care of you when you get older. This is the generation that is considered your future, that is the future of humankind as a whole. The more you stand back and allow things to be put in kids' shows that may influence kids, the more often it's going to be done. And it doesn't matter what side of the political aisle you're on, this should still concern you. What if it was the other side, the complete different ideological spectrum than what you conform to? Would you be okay with it? No? Well, as long as politics are getting put into shows that are aimed at kids, the possibility is still there. You don't like it. We don't like it. Why don't we just cut it off at the head? This isn't a hydra. It doesn't have to grow back. So we need to get ahead of it now. The more we appease someone, the more they'll do it. You take a cookie from the cookie jar and get away from it, you're more likely to do it the next time. Just think about it. Allow your kids to grow up and just be kids while they have the opportunity to do so. Don't take childhood away from kids in order to make them appease you as an adult. It's not worth it. Allow them to grow up and think for themselves, experience their own stuff at the age where they're supposed to do it, where it's optimal for them to do it. But that's just my opinion. That's just my take. And you don't have to agree with me, but if you disagree, do it respectfully in the comments below, and do not attack one another, please. If you would like to call me a bigot though, allow me to put this in here at the end. A bigot is somebody who is hateful towards someone else due to their beliefs. So, as I stated at the beginning, these are my beliefs. So don't prove yourself a hypocrite in the comments. For more news, reviews, and whatever we choose, stay tuned to Nerdsfeed. Have a great day. Thank you. Bum bum ba-da-dee bum bum ba-dum bum 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 ba-da bum. We bear bears.